No one is truly married until they understand what their spouse is not saying. Anybody who's in a marriage recognizes how true that quote is. But I would suggest that that's true of any relationship, whether you're talking about coworkers, friendships, family. No one is truly in a relationship until they understand what that other person is not saying. Relationships are one of the most important things that you and I as human beings deal with. And I want to share with you 3 benefits that healthy boundaries will provide in any relationship. Recently on the No Gray Areas podcast, we had my favorite guest of all time, and I really mean it because it was my wife, Shar. We sat down and we were talking about marriage. And one of the things that came up was the importance of boundaries. But I again would suggest that boundaries are critical in any relationship, whether that be marriage, friendship, coworkers, boss, employee. They're critical for anything. So what are boundaries? A boundary is a clear line. A boundary, you can almost imagine it like a property line. If you own property, you know that you have stakes in the ground, so to speak. And if you're going to build anything, that has to be done in your property line, not on their property line. Now, and I quote this, let me read something about how boundaries are connected to relationships. In any relationship, boundaries define where things like our personhood, our identity, our responsibility, and our control begin and end relative to the other person. A boundary line communicates what a relationship is from what it is not. That last part is critical. A boundary line communicates what a relationship is and what it is not. These are some questions, common questions that come up whenever we start talking about boundaries in relationships. Can I set limits and still be a loving person? What are legitimate boundaries? What if someone is upset or hurt by my boundaries? How do I answer someone who wants my time, love, energy, or money? Aren't boundaries selfish? Why do I feel guilty or afraid when I consider setting boundaries? Now, I don't have time to answer all of these, but I strongly suggest reading this book or listening to the audiobook. You'll see a picture of it on the screen. Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend book titled Boundaries. It's amazing. They actually turned it into a series of books, Boundaries on Dating, Boundaries in Friendships, Boundaries in Marriage. I would encourage you to read those. But let me share with you again 3 benefits healthy boundaries will create. Benefit number 1, responsibility. Again, it's like a property line. I am responsible for what's in my property. You are responsible for what's in your property. Boundaries, and again I quote, boundaries helps us to both not relinquish our own personal responsibility while also protecting us from not enabling someone else's poor choices. I have to read that again because you have to get that. Boundaries help us both not relinquish our own personal responsibility while also protecting us from not enabling someone else's poor choices. A silly story with this was years ago when Shar and I, my wife and I, were going through this study with boundaries. And one of the things she recognized is that she was going to put up a boundary where when I was having a bad day, it didn't mean she had to have a bad day. It's a silly illustration, but it had a profound impact in our relationship. And to be honest, I was a little frustrated early on because when I came home and I was frustrated and I had a bad day, I assumed she should be having a bad day with me. But that was her boundary to say, it's okay if you're having a bad day, but it doesn't have to ruin my day. See, my bad day was within my boundary, and her choosing to not have to have a bad day because of my bad day was within her boundaries. And so there's a sense of responsibility. It's one of the benefits. A second benefit of boundaries is freedom. Freedom in 2 ways. Freedom for me to fix what's on my property and freedom to let go of what's on someone else's property. Let me go back to that silly illustration that Shar recognized years ago that my bad day didn't have to infringe on her day. And what that really did was that Sharmin was putting a boundary up that helped me realize it was my responsibility to deal with my bad day, not her responsibility. And so there's freedom for me and freedom for the other person in that relationship on how we deal in our relationship regarding boundaries. Boundaries provide freedom. Boundaries, number 3, the benefit is respect. It leads to us respecting the other person by being other focused versus other controlled. Oh, I can't stress this one enough. Boundaries help create the respect in us becoming other focused and not other controlled. Oh, I encourage you to brew and meditate on the depth of this. You see, 2,000 years ago, a theologian and a philosopher named Paul, he wrote most of what we call the New Testament in our Bible. He was writing a group of people in Philippi, and it is a great passage. In Philippians chapter 2, he said, have this attitude in yourselves, which was also in Jesus. What attitude was he talking about? He was talking about humility. And he actually defines humility as this. He says, humility is putting the needs of others in front of your own. It's other-focused. I can promise you, I can guarantee you that in any of your relationship, whether we're talking about friendships, coworkers, boss, employee, spouses, children, family, that when you are other focused, it will have a profound impact. But what boundaries do is they make sure that we don't move from being other focused to other controlled. It respects the fact that I'm going to be other focused, but I'm not going to be other controlled. It's mutual respect. I will respect others by not trying to control them, and I will respect myself by not allowing them to control me. I can be other focused, but I'm not going to be other controlled. Healthy boundaries are critical for any healthy relationship. Let me just give you a warning, though. There are some who begin to deal with boundaries in relationships, and the danger is you can become very selfish in that. You start putting up all kinds of boundaries, and you quit being other focused. So let me just give you that warning. However, healthy boundaries, healthy boundaries will actually increase our ability to care, respect, honor, and love those in our relationships. Growing up, I often heard that divorce is always two people's fault. That broken relationships is always two people's fault. Enough life and time and observing has made me realize how untrue that is. I've recognized that one person can ruin a relationship. One person can make a relationship toxic. But let me read this truth that life has displayed to me. A relationship can be unhealthy and toxic because of one person's poor choices. However, a truly healthy relationship is always a result of two people mutually respecting and growing together. Let me say that again. A relationship can be unhealthy and toxic because of one person's poor choices. However, a truly healthy relationship, whether we're talking friendship, coworkers, spouses, children, is always a result of two people mutually respecting and growing together. We'd love to hear from you. Comment below or email me at info@nograyareas.com. Like, follow, share, and subscribe. No Gray Areas.